The sun dipped low over Lavender Acres as I cradled my guitar case and followed my friends through the wrought iron gates of the community picnic grounds, laughter echoing against the stucco walls. We'd planned this open-air jam session for weeks, no permits, no fancy equipment, just raw energy and the thrill of playing solos under a cotton candy sky. As I tuned my strings, I spotted her across the lawn. Mrs. Karen Whitlock, HOA enforcer extraordinaire, her ample frame silhouetted against the whitewashed community center. She hovered like a vulture, clipboard in hand, lips pursed in righteous disapproval. My heart pounded, but I smiled at my friends Officer Martinez, Detective Lou, and Deputy Harper, who winked back as if they'd orchestrated her arrival. Moments later, Karen stormed forward, her heels clicking like a starting pistol. She thrust the clipboard at me, voice dripping with sanctimony. "You have no permit for amplified sound. This gathering violates Section 12B of our bylaws. I'm calling the authorities." My pulse spiked when she jabbed her manicured nail at the speakers we'd casually set on folding chairs. The other neighbors froze, children's ice cream cones forgotten. But I held my ground, my fingers brushing the frets of my guitar, as if drawing courage from the wood. Before she could reach for her phone, Martinez raised a hand and said with a straight face, "We'll take it from here, Ms. Whitlock." Karen's eyes widened in confusion, her lips parting like a fish out of water. That's when our twist unfolded. Karen's trembling fingers hovered over her phone as I continued strumming an impromptu riff that cut through the tension like lightning. But just as she began dialing, Detective Lou produced her badge, flashing it deliberately. "Ma'am, please step back. This is an authorized event under City Code 8-3A. We've ensured all legal bases are covered." Karen's face drained of color as Harper approached, clipboard in hand, pulling out documents stamped with the police department's official seal. "Your complaint is noted, but there's no violation." The assembled crowd erupted in relieved applause while Karen gaped, mouth slack. Yet the real twist came when Lou held up a second set of paper-san application for a special community permit that Karen had quietly submitted last week under her maiden name, guaranteeing exclusive use of the grounds for private HOA functions. Evidence showed she'd planned to fine anyone else who dared occupy the space, pocketing the fees herself through a shell account titled Karen's Community LLC. The betrayal cut deep. The same woman who preached neighborly love was lining her pockets with petty fines. Neighbors murmured indignantly as Lou laid out bank statements and HOA minutes, revealing 2 months' worth of illicit revenue. Karen's shoulders sagged, her pearls rattling like marbles. In the heated confrontation that followed, Karen sputtered excuses about administrative oversight and community safety. But the proof was irrefutable. I felt a surge of anger not just for me, but for every resident who'd been shamed and fined. As the sun set, we held an emergency vote to strip Karen of her enforcement privileges. The result was unanimous. 25 in favor, 0 against, and 1 crushed ego. Karen's world collapsed in real time, her carefully constructed empire reduced to scandalous footnotes. When the board reconvened the next morning, I found myself standing before a room brimming with hopeful faces. Martinez placed the gavel in my hand. "You've earned the trust of this community," he said. "Will you accept the role of HOA president?" My throat tightened, but I nodded, looking out at neighbors who once trembled at Karen's shadow. I promised to champion transparency, fellowship, and joy, starting with weekly open mic nights and monthly potluck dinners, all free of charge and free of fear. Over the following weeks, Lavender Acres transformed. Playlists of laughter and live music replaced Karen's droning announcements of fines. Gardens once trimmed to perfection now bloomed wild with native flowers, painted murals told stories of unity, and the old wooden board, once a symbol of Karen's tyranny, hung outside my home bearing the words, "We vibed and thrived." One evening, as I closed my guitar case and glanced at the board, I spotted Karen walking past, her eyes downcast. She paused, then offered a small nod, as if acknowledging that justice had been served. In that moment, I realized that our victory wasn't about humiliation or revenge, it was about reclaiming our shared humanity. We'd shown that even the most entrenched oppressor could be unmasked by solidarity and truth. Now, I leave you with this. Was our public exposé of Karen justified, or should we have sought reconciliation first? Share your opinion below and let's keep the conversation going. The mornings that followed felt almost surreal as I stepped onto the dewy grass of the reclaimed picnic grounds, now alive with chatter and music rather than Karen's clipped admonitions. Children chased bubbles drifting across the field, neighbors swapped recipes by the flower beds, and every Friday, someone brought a guitar or a cajon to join our impromptu open mic night. I found myself circulating through the crowd offering high fives to new board members, jotting down ideas for community art projects, and quietly observing how the absence of fear had transformed our little enclave into a place of genuine warmth. Yet beneath that joy lay the memory of Karen's dramatic downfall, a cautionary tale about power and accountability that still colored every conversation. I realized that preserving our newfound unity would require constant vigilance, not just a single act of justice. I convened a small working group of residents who'd shown leadership potential at the first post-Karen meeting. Priya, the retired schoolteacher with a knack for diplomacy, Marcus, the landscaper whose community garden had blossomed under the radar, and Denise, the tech-savvy college student who created our neighborhood app for event RSVP and bylaws publishing. Together, we established a monthly transparency forum, where any homeowner could raise concerns, propose projects, or question board decisions in an open, recorded session. We removed the intimidating oak podium that Karen had used to lecture neighbors and replaced it with a round table under the pergola, where everyone sat at equal height. The first forum drew a larger crowd than any Karen-led meeting. For the first time, I heard stories of community members who'd felt marginalized, gardeners cited for wildflower patches, dog owners fined for barking at dawn, and even new families discouraged from joining because they feared unfair scrutiny. As each person spoke, others offered support, apologizing for the past silence. By the end of the night, our working group had a dozen proposals to vote on, everything from a neighborhood welcome committee to a volunteer maintenance crew for the playground's broken swing. But not everyone cheered our reforms. One evening, I discovered a smear campaign on social media. Anonymous posts accusing me of election rigging, favoritism toward certain cliques, and even colluding with local developers, echoes of the very tactics Karen had deployed. The anonymity emboldened some neighbors to lash out, reviving old fears that a new tyrant might rise. My chest tightened as I read the venomous comments, but I reminded myself that transparent leadership meant addressing criticism head-on. So I posted a thorough explanation of our election procedures, complete with time-stamped minutes and scanned nomination forms, and invited anyone who still doubted our integrity to meet me at the community center the next afternoon. Only 3 people showed up, to a longtime residents and a couple who just moved in, yet their questions, frank and sometimes harsh, helped me refine our process further. When we emerged nearly 2 hours later with clearer guidelines and a unanimous agreement on oversight measures, even the most skeptical among us left nodding in reluctant approval. A pivotal moment came when Denise suggested we transform the empty kiosk at the park entrance into a digital bulletin board displaying live updates on board decisions, community events, and even real-time weather alerts. It was the first time technology had been harnessed for collective benefit rather than policing neighborly behavior. Marcus and I painted the kiosk with bright murals of wildflowers and vinyl stickers reading "Your Voice Matters." On launch day, we streamed the live feed for the transparency forum on the kiosk screen, and a small crowd gathered to watch, cheering when the questions tab flashed with new viewer submissions. Karen, watching from her porch across the street, lingered as the crowd disbanded. I waved her over and she ambled toward us, uncertain. I offered her a microphone. Against my better judgment, I said, "If you have feedback or concerns, now you have a platform too." Her weathered hands trembled as she reached for the mic, voice cracking as she admitted, "I was wrong about all of this. I let rules become a weapon instead of a bridge." The applause that followed wasn't mocking but hopeful, as if we all recognized how difficult it is to admit fault. In that moment, I glimpsed the neighbor we might have forgotten beneath the bully persona, someone who once cared deeply about order and safety, yet lost sight of compassion. Over the next few weeks, Karen volunteered to serve as an usher at our weekly potlucks, greeting newcomers with a stiff smile and occasionally handing out napkins. She kept her distance from policy discussions but mastered the coffee urn, offering lattes on chilly mornings. A few neighbors breathed a sigh of relief at her absence from leadership roles. Others quietly welcomed her small contributions. I realized that true rehabilitation isn't always about restoring formal power, it's about finding productive ways for former antagonists to participate without the keys to the kingdom. As I watched Karen refill my mug one morning, I nodded in thanks. She gave a tentative smile before hurrying away, perhaps still unsure how to fit into this reimagined community. Meanwhile, our committee's projects proliferated. We built a little free library out of reclaimed lumber painted in vibrant hues, stocked daily by volunteers. We started a neighborhood watch that relied on group chats and shared photos rather than midnight patrols and summons. We organized a summer youth mural program, where local artists mentored teens to paint stories of our shared history on the community center walls. Each project reinforced a culture of inclusion and accountability, antidotes to Karen's former regime of fines and secret fees. One crisp Saturday, we held our first annual Unity Festival, complete with food trucks, live bands, a community photo booth, and a silent auction to fund scholarships for local students. I stood on the mini stage as master of ceremonies, heart swelling as I introduced my friends, the detectives who'd helped expose Karen, the new board members who'd taken responsibility for line-item budgets, and the volunteers who'd baked pies and wrangled tents. When the sun dipped below the horizon, we flicked on strings of Edison bulbs, and thousands of fireflies released safely from their jars earlier that day drifted among the oak trees, creating a living canopy of light. A hush fell over the crowd as people pointed skyward, marveling at nature's spectacle. In that quiet, I realized our victory was more than having toppled a petty tyrant. It was rediscovering our place in a living, breathing community that thrived on mutual respect and shared wonder. Late that night, as I packed away leftover decorations, I found Karen lingering by the festival gate, arms folded as she watched families depart. I approached her gently, offering leftover confetti and a warm chocolate donut. She accepted the treat and sighed. I never imagined people would celebrate like this. I nodded, remembering the day she'd first accused us of rule-breaking. Rules can guide us, but they shouldn't define us, I said. She turned toward me, eyes glistening, and whispered, "Thank you for showing me how community can be more than compliance." We stood together under the soft glow of the bulbs, two neighbors shaped by conflict yet united by renewal. In the weeks that followed, I reflected on the arc of our journey, from Karen's shocking complaint about our vibing jam session to her dramatic unmasking, from my unlikely ascent to HOA leadership to the collective rebirth of Lavender Acres. The scars of betrayal lingered, but they served as reminders that power, once abused, demands not only accountability but also continuous vigilance and compassion. As I drafted my final report for the year, I included a simple motto at the end. In a true community, authority is shared, truth is visible, and every voice matters. Now, as our neighborhood stands on the brink of a new chapter, one where open mic nights, potluck dinners, and little free libraries outshine petty fines and clandestine fees, I turn to you, reader. Was it right to expose Karen's schemes so publicly, or should we have sought a quieter reconciliation? Do you believe a community can ever fully heal after such a betrayal? Or do you think scars of mistrust linger beneath the surface? Share your honest thoughts below and help us chart the next steps of our journey.